Hello, service coordinators. Welcome to the Service Coordinator Podcast. This is episode number 6 of the Service Coordinator Podcast. And today we are joined by Heather Murray and Tara Wenger, both from National Church Residences. Heather's going to talk to us about her role as a service coordinator down in Atlanta, Georgia, but also about a program we're doing down there with Habitat for Humanity. So welcome to the podcast. Like I said, number 6, and we've got a few more lined up, so you'll be seeing more of these podcasts throughout the year. If you could please subscribe to the podcast and like it and leave comments or do whatever, that would really, we'd really appreciate that. And so let's get started. So Heather, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's nice to be able to share some of the work that we're doing out here in hot Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's hot in Columbus today. It's like, what, 42 degrees or something. So people will be wearing shorts and everything. So Heather, why don't you tell me, how did you become a service coordinator? When did you start with National Church Residence? How did you find this job? Were you doing service coordination prior to National Church Residences?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. And I really wasn't doing exact service coordination, but I'm a old-time seasoned social worker. So yay to the social workers out there, 20 years plus in social work. And prior to coming to National Church Residences, I was director of risk management, actually with Habitat for Humanity International, which oversaw the, over 1,500 affiliates or chapters at the time throughout the United States and Canada. And I was providing a lot of policy and quality assurance and development to those chapters. And after 10 years, it was a good kind of chance for me to kind of look around and say, hey, what else do I want to do with my life? And there was a partnership that was beginning to flourish with National Church Residences and International Habitat, and also the local chapter here in Atlanta, where we started talking about, service coordination, not only for seniors, but just being able to build a life for a senior in their home. So it came from working with Habitat with their rehabs and renovations to then transferring more into the community and working with seniors in their homes. And I said, oh, that's an interesting prospect, and kind of was the first one to kind of jump ship on and go and start working with the local Atlanta Habitat and build the program from scratch, which is something that I like to do. And now from 2017 to 2021, here we are, and still flourishing.
So you've been a service coordinator at Betmar Village for a few years now, but you're also doing part-time work for Habitat in this program?
Yeah, so I actually started at Big Bethel Village and Habitat. The main thing with this is it's on the west side of Atlanta, which is where a lot of community development and gentrification occurs. And so the focus was on the west side of Atlanta. Part-time I was with Big Bethel Village. The other half would be with Atlanta Habitat, both of which providing service coordination. The uniqueness of this program, which was called Home for Life, is, it was more so working in the community as well as on site at a property, with the same goal of providing service coordinations for seniors so that they can remain home for life. So I had the unique opportunity of being on site at a property, but also going and doing the same assessments in the home of a senior homeowner and providing them with that level of care. One of the things also that occurred was looking at, are there differences in that type of service coordination? And with the result of Care Guide, we were able to see those comparisons, and both showed that they're struggling with the same issues. So that was what was exciting about that. So for the past 2 years, I've actually been at Betmar Village and providing them with that level of care, but still also working with Atlanta Habitat.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more. I know that a lot of people are familiar with Habitat for Humanity for building either new homes or helping families with home ownership.
Mhm.
But this program, I think, is pretty unique that at the local Habitat for Humanity, they actually have a program to help senior homeowners with repairs. Can you talk more about that and how that developed into this investment in service coordination?
Absolutely. Well, the overall mission with Atlanta Habitat for Humanity, and pretty much all the chapters, but we'll focus on Atlanta, is to act as a catalyst. They want to transform the community and perform what's called neighborhood revitalization. What do I mean by that? Well, instead of, as you know, the traditional way of Habitat for Humanity, building homes or maybe renovating homes for people, they also want to be able to revise the community. So instead of just having the home being in a neighborhood where there might be abandoned buildings and not really having anything as far as community linkages, by having a community partner like National Church Residents also provides a service coordination, what we are now having is a relationship between the community as well as the local agency and the senior, and providing them with a level of care for referrals, community linkages, and also at the same time helping them to remain home for life by having the Habitat construction side rebuild or renovate their home. So that partnership was so unique because both of them are mission focused on keeping someone home for life. On the Habitat side, they're doing, a renovation, or there's another one called Brush with Kindness, where they're actually painting or just renovating their home in that way. But then on the National Churches side, they're keeping the resident home for life through care coordination. So it was a natural link for the two to come together. And what I've done is I have a point person, or I like to call him the gatekeeper at the Habitat side, that will receive referrals from a senior, any senior that's 55 and over that qualifies for a Habitat service, is also referred to the National Church side for service coordination. And it's a seamless process, Tara, which has been great because to the homeowner on the Habitat side, they just feel that this is part of the whole partnership. It's like a continuation of services. So they may be needing, because of their ambulation issues, they may be needing a ramp, or they may need their bathroom, expanded. So the construction side, depending on budget, will be able to do that. And then on the care coordination side, I'm making sure that they're having their linkages to getting, getting the care that they need through their doctor and those referrals. Part of the assessment also matches what their ambulation or needs are, and we have a case conference with the Habitat side to say, well, how is this working? What is it that we can do so that this senior can remain home for life? And to the senior, they're just getting the best care ever from both partners.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that it's a very interesting partnership. I think it's very innovative as well. I'm guessing that a lot of service coordinators who will listen to this podcast have residents at their low income housing, or maybe it's a mid market rate site, but that there's people who moved into their site because they weren't able to maintain their homes or afford the modifications that were needed. And when we think about the concept of home for life, the idea here is we want to, wherever someone calls home, we want to have help enable them to stay wherever it is they want to as home. And if and when they're unable to maintain that home, provide housing as well. But the idea that our organization believes so strongly in Home for Life that we're trying to build these partnerships so that any place a person calls home, they can remain. I just think that it's a very unique, the most holistic you could possibly be addressing the needs of a senior to say we're even going to bring in a construction crew if that's necessary.
We are going to make this happen, and it's you are so right, Tara, because we actually have had examples of, I can think of one of a resident that was interested in hearing about, the other services should her care be needed, and whether or not she could maintain her home. And, we were able to actually have a smooth transition of one resident that, no longer can maintain the home, and she was able to move into one of our residences. And so that was what was a really nice, partnership. And then on the other side, we had some that were already at, either Big Bethel or Betmar, but some of their new family and other neighbors that were in the same catchment area of what Habitat serves. So they were able to share with them this program, and they're in their home still, and was able to register for Habitat's, Habitat's repair services. So it kind of worked both ways. And then also one of the benefits, and the uniqueness of being a service coordinator is, seeing the perspective of a homeowner that actually has been there in the community 20 plus years. They've paid off the mortgage, but unfortunately a lot of their friends and family have now passed, and they're isolated. So, now we are in the midst of the pandemic. And, instead of me doing home visits, I was one of the first to now still be able to do the assessments, but now we're doing the phone-based assessments. And they were really critically needed, because not only were they isolated, but they had no idea in terms of what resources were available to them. So we still see this as a very valuable service, and I'm glad that Habitat does as well. One of the things that Jerry O'Rourke, who's director, as of Home for Life, she had the foresight to actually get me certified as what's called a CAPS person, a certified aging in place specialist. And that's a special designation that's recognized by home builders. So what that is I'm able to go into a home and assess whether or not, based on their ambulation needs, if there's a need for guardrails or these types of things, and talk some of that language that the construction folks talk. And, because of that designation, they may listen a little bit more. It's easy,
badge.
it's like that little badge that you have, like, I'm CAP certified, but it's nice because when I went for that certification, I was able to get the knowledge in terms of what could be possible for a homeowner to stay home for life. And then even on the property side, with affordable accommodations that could be made on the apartments, the guardrails and the those types of things. At least I'm able to have some of that insight, so that we can help prevent slips and falls and those things that can happen as they age.
So how many residents have you worked with through the Habitat program? I'm curious.
Right. Good question. I believe it's been, okay, well, for year one, the goal was 75. We're in the third year now. So
Okay.
I have touched at least about 200 individuals.
Wow.
When we say touch, that means I've been in contact with them. The dose may not be as deep as what we would do on property. However, at least those 200 individuals have had a full assessment. They actually have had some referrals when needed. And ironically, some of them, even a year out, have called back, and because they've had that positive experience with a service coordination, are asking for additional referrals. So the uniqueness of this program is with the Habitat side is it's not as in depth as the housing side, where they're more accessible to you, because it was actually going out into the community, into the different zip codes and into their homes. Now that we're in the pandemic, it's a little easier for me to make those phone calls and, be in touch with them on a more regular basis. And for a homeowner, you can imagine, not knowing who the individual is, trying to be very cautious about, their own personal surroundings. I found that because of the reputation of Habitat Atlanta and reputation of National Church, it's been an easy, smooth transition for me to kind of get into the family system and be able to provide those referrals.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's much different from, 40, 100, 200 residents in a building, and they're kind of checking on each other, and the service coordinator seeing them when they come down to get their mail, as opposed to somebody sitting in their home all by themselves all day long. So definitely an isolation an issue there. So that's amazing. So is this the only program that Habitat's doing as far as service coordination goes? Do you know that?
It is. It's the only model. It's the only pilot. And it's the only model. what we had talked about at the international level was, replicating the model. And, because of my past experience, I was making sure from a QA perspective how to do that. It's definitely able to take on the road. There are some strong chapters in Columbus, and there were some strong chapters around, the nation, where if, we were looking at this model, I think it can be done. And I think it's already being done, but not formalized.
Yeah.
You know? So I encourage, those that may have some relationships with any Habitat chapter, or just even wanted to have a discussion with their executive director to see how on a pilot scale they might be able to have some funding, and definitely available to share, some lessons learned, and how we can get this done around the nation.
Yeah, and one of the great things, it depends on, there's lots of service coordinators listening that are funded in a lot of different ways, but
Right.
If a service coordinator is funded through a HUD grant or a HUD-based, budget, that grant says that they can serve a certain, some community-based residents around their property. Whether or not they have the bandwidth with all that's going on right now, who knows?
Right,
but,
right.
I think that's a really great point, Heather, that if a service coordinator is connected to a local Habitat for Humanity chapter and just wants to kind of do some education with them to say, hey, if you ever have a client that needs a referral for something, let me know.
Right.
And vice versa, if, can I send you people if my residents have family members in need? Or, I think that that's kind of how, when we think about, this is obviously a formalized program that we're talking about, but it stemmed from National Church Residences and Habitat for Humanity in Atlanta just consistently working with each other over time, being good partners to each other even before there was a formalized program that tied the two organizations to each other.
Exactly.
And that, I think that speaks to the importance, which service coordinators do so well, of doing education of community entities, and just getting the word out about what they do so that they have good agencies to refer to and to support.
Exactly. It would be great for, for service coordinators, even, property managers, even just to have a conversation with the local Habitat in their community. Not only are they helpful with their community restores, which has, donated goods and furniture that might help out some of their residents, especially if they are coming from a place where they don't have anything, they can actually get donated items. But just from a partnership, as you're talking, Tara, how important it is to talk about common goals, because we do that. I think that's how it was seamless for us. We do share common goals, and the bottom line is the seniors, and the care that we are able to provide for them. A lot of the seniors are now becoming much more savvy with Zoom calls and those types of things. And I found with the Habitat folks, they are even willing and able to try to get in touch, because they're much more isolated in their own homes and on their streets. They're not outside at this point because of the pandemic. And so I think it's even more timely for us to be able to be methodical and think about how we can, outreach into the community, even on a small scale. That would be great.
Well, Heather, you're doing an amazing job. I didn't really know all the ins and outs of the program. It sounds like you're doing a great job in your own building as well, but this sounds like a great program. And, when I think about it, I see, possibilities for service coordinators for other opportunities, other jobs. I mean, it doesn't have to be just in affordable housing. It can, we do have seniors out in the community that are definitely isolated, that definitely need the same services that the service or the residents are getting in our own affordable housing. So how do we get to those residents? And this sounds like maybe this might be an avenue for that down the road. So you never know. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your experience and talking about the program. Tara, did you have any other questions for Heather?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Heather. Service coordinators, please, again, subscribe to the podcast so you get updates and everything when new podcasts are coming. But thanks for coming on, and have a great day, everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye.